is approved. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will be immediately notified of this action.
The
Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to legislative session.
The Senate has approved one of President Donald Trump's top economic advisors for a seat on the Federal Reserve's governing board, giving the White House greater influence over the central bank just 2 days before it is expected to vote in favor of reducing its key interest rate. The vote to confirm Stephen Miran was largely along party lines, 48 to 47. He was approved by the Senate Banking Committee last week, with all Republicans voting in favor and all Democrats opposed. Miran's nomination has sparked concerns about the Fed's longtime independence from day-to-day politics after he said during a committee hearing earlier this month that he would keep his job as chair of the White House's Council of Economic Advisors, though would take unpaid leave. Senate Democrats have said such an approach is incompatible with an independent Fed. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said ahead of the vote that Miran has no independence and would be nothing more than Donald Trump's mouthpiece at the Fed. The vote was along party lines, with Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski the only Republican to vote against Miran. Miran is completing an unexpired term that ends in January after Adriana Kugler unexpectedly stepped down from the board August. 1. He said if he is appointed to a longer term, he would resign from his White House job. Fed, including former chair Ben Bernanke, who served in President George W. Bush's administration. But Bernanke and others left their White House jobs when joining the board, Miran said during his September. 4. Hearing that, if confirmed, I will act independently, as the Federal Reserve always does, based on my own personal analysis of economic data. Last year, Miran criticized what he called the revolving door of officials between the White House and the Fed in a paper he co-wrote with Daniel Katz for the conservative Manhattan Institute. Katz is now chief of staff at the Treasury Department. Miran's approval arrives as Trump's efforts to shape the Fed have been dealt a setback elsewhere. He has sought to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, who was appointed by former President Joe Biden to a term that ends in 2038.
I have received advice from counsel that what is required is an unpaid leave of absence from the Council of Economic Advisors, and so considering the term for which I'm being nominated is a little bit more than 4 months, that is what I will be taking.
So you're going to be a consistent leader. You're going to be an employee of the President of the United States on leave. So he can call you up in his capacity as President and say, here, I want you to do this, this, and this. Well, I guess I have to do it since I'm an employee of the President. That is absolutely ridiculous. What is your current job?
My current job is the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors.
In the White House, thank you. And so you're basically a living proof of the criticism that you lodged against the Federal Reserve Board, correct? You're a political partisan who works in the White House, who might be bright, but is ideologically disposed to the politics of Donald Trump.
My current job is the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors.
In the White House, thank you. And so you're basically a living proof of the criticism that you lodged against the Federal Reserve Board, correct? You're a political partisan who works in the White House, who might be bright, but is ideologically disposed to the politics of Donald Trump.
Thank you, Senator. As I said a few moments ago, I view the act of deciding that the Federal Reserve is the institution to take on climate change as a highly political, non-technocratic act. And if I am confirmed to the Federal Reserve, I'll make it my goal to keep the Federal Reserve to its core missions.
That's an interesting concept because in my other capacity in national security, the Department of Defense is extremely sensitive to climate change because it is altering the threats that face us every day. And I'll speak for myself, but anybody who believes climate change is mythical is essentially posturing. Now, you're a member of the Council of Economic Advisors. If you're confirmed, will you resign from the council?
Thank you, Senator. I have received advice from counsel that what is required is an unpaid leave of absence from the Council of Economic Advisors. And so considering the term for which I'm being nominated is a little bit more than 4 months, that is what I will be taking. As long as that is the advice of counsel, I will follow the law.
Well, your independence has already been seriously compromised by your statement. You are going to be technically an employee of the President of the United States, but an independent member of the Board of the Federal Reserve? That's ridiculous. And you also said that a Federal Reserve Board member should refrain from involvement for 4 years after he leaves office with any executive branch. Are you committed to that also?
Thank you, Senator. Look, I'm committed to the independence of the Federal Reserve. I have in the past proposed a suite of reforms to improve governance of the Federal Reserve. That suite was a package deal. It was a system of checks and balances designed to diffuse political power and isolate the Fed from political interference. It would be inappropriate to take one check or balance away from the entire suite and think about implementing it.
So the answer is no. So you're going to be a consistent leader. You're going to be an employee of the President of the United States on leave. So he can call you up in his capacity as president and say, here, I want you to do this, this, and this. Well, I guess I have to do it since I'm an employee of the president. That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, finally, you noted last year, in quote, that the firing for cause protections under the law were inappropriate, and you recommended Congress remove those protections. You went on to recommend that to provide constitutional legitimacy if and when the president is allowed to fire governors at will, the president should voluntarily announce that he will refrain from removing any incumbent board members or Federal Reserve Bank leaders through their terms. If the courts grant President Trump the authority to fire federal governors for any reason, any time, will you commit to advising the president publicly to refrain from exercising this authority consistent with your recommendations in 2024?
Thank you, Senator. As I said just a few moments ago, that proposal was a package deal. It was a suite of checks and balances, and it's highly inappropriate to take one check or balance outside of the context of the overall package. Checks and balances work between the Congress and the executive and the judiciary, the two chambers of Congress, because they all work in conjunction and prevent power from being concentrated.
So the answer is no, and that you will cooperate if he tries through any means to eliminate a member of the Federal Reserve Board. Thank you very much.
Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all the nominees. Won't be able to answer or get to all questions for all of you, so I'll submit most of them to the record. I only have 5 minutes. But Mr. Hobbs, let me start with you. I'm very interested in how we increase the affordable supply of housing in Indian country. So can you talk a little bit about that and what HUD intends to do to help us increase that supply?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for the question. It is a priority of mine. It's a priority of Secretary Turner and President Trump to engage with our stakeholders in Indian country. I recently visited Alaska and the Napakiak tribe. I've been to Wisconsin in the Oneida tribe. And one of the things that we're consistently discussing is how to reduce the regulatory burden on tribes. A number of them are actually coming into HUD next week at our Tribal Interagency Advisory Committee, and we'll be meeting with them. And one of their key topics is looking at NEPA, some of our radon regulations, and others that really are overly burdensome and just artificially increase the costs of them executing their Indian housing block grants.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing and working with HUD to do more to make sure that we can prioritize this in Indian country, and we are working on housing and affordable housing there. So thank you. Mr. Miran, let me talk to you. I know you've probably received some of these questions as well. My office and I suspect those of my colleagues are being inundated with calls and letters from small business owners. These small business owners say they cannot keep their doors open with prices rising 50 to 145% for toys, shoes, coffee, auto parts, fruits, and vegetables. These business owners are worried they will have to lay off their employees, or some of them already have, or close their doors and stop serving their neighbors. Yet you told me in February, and I quote, "The economic burden of tariffs imposed by the United States is borne by the country whose exports are tariffed. Do you still believe that?
Thank you, Senator. So the theory of incidence in public finance and economics, which is a very well-established old literature that's not very controversial, that generally rests upon what economists would call long-run elasticities. And
I don't need an economic theory. I already went through that in finance classes at University of Nadarino. I just need to know your position. Do you still believe that what your statement was, that the economic burden of tariffs imposed by the United States is borne by the country whose exports are tariffed? Do you still believe that, yes or no?
Thank you, Senator. In the long run, I 100% believe that. In the short run, I've always maintained that there could be volatility.
And does that volatility mean that individual taxpayers are actually, in businesses, are paying those tariffs and having to close their doors? Is that what you are saying, is a volatility that small businesses may have to close their doors and they're just going to have to suck it up?
Thank you, Senator. I don't believe that there is any material evidence of that to date.
So let me just say, on CNN, you were interviewed about an auto parts maker in Detroit just had to lay off 100 workers and shut down a warehouse. The owner specifically blamed tariffs. And you stated it's always convenient to blame political changes when your business fails. Is that how you still believe? It's not, this business owner doesn't know what he's doing?
Thank you, Senator. I was not familiar with the circumstances of that particular business or those particular 100 workers at that time.
So then why didn't you say that at the interview, and why did you make a statement like you did? It's always convenient to blame political changes when your business fails. That seems like you're disregarding our businesses altogether. Let me ask you this. Do you believe tariffs are taxes?
Thank you, Senator. Economically speaking, any policy can be modeled as a tax. So in that sense, exactly what I said. Any economic policy can be modeled.
So is that a yes?
Well, what I'm saying is that the answer to your question is that any economic policy can be modeled as a tax, whether it's a
Okay,
subsidy,
so that
benefit.
is, your question is a yes, tariffs or taxes?
My answer is that any economic policy can be modeled as such.
Under the last administration, we saw a surge in manufacturing jobs and construction, with the U.S. economy adding over 500,000 manufacturing jobs and construction of factories doubling. Unfortunately, under this administration, we have seen the exact opposite. In August, the U.S. manufacturing sector contracted for the 6th consecutive month due to Trump's tariffs and chaotic trade policy. Earlier this year, you said that manufacturing construction will surge as a result of Trump's tariff and tax policies. Were you wrong?
Senator, I do not believe that that's the case. I believe that they will, because the uncertainty from the tax situation is resolved. I believe that just a few months ago, there was a huge amount
So
of
would you say it's
uncertainty.
transitory?
Well, I think people were concerned that Congress would allow the biggest tax hike in history to throw the economy into a recession, and there would be substantial disincentives for investing in the United States. Fortunately, Congress has not allowed that to happen. The One Big Beautiful Bill has become the One Big Beautiful Act, and the uncertainty around the tax situation has resolved, replaced with enormous incentives for investing in America in the form
So you
of
weren't
funds.
wrong. We just have to wait and see.
Well,
Is that
the bill
what
was
you're saying?
the bill was only enacted recently.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I know my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.